AshdownJones from Firewave, and on today's Whiteboard Wednesday we're going to be talking about feedback, viewing feedback and what your process is. So a lot of the meetings and valuations I've been going to recently, a lot of the clients have been talking about feedback, especially if they're already on the market with a different agent. They often say that at the beginning the feedback is fine and then slowly it turns into radio silence and where they've got to chase, and even then they often don't get back to them. So I want you to think about exactly what your process is. Now I'll take you through our process. So remember, the team goes in the viewing, we then leave a viewing card which has instant feedback on there, and the idea of this is that the worst thing about being on the market and people looking around your home is then not knowing. So for example, you've had a view on your home. At that stage, it could be a definite yes, they're going to offer asking price, or it could be a no, they hate it, there's no chance. But that is a huge margin. So let's say there's a viewing on Saturday, they've then got Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, all thinking about this possible excitement or possible annoyance or frustration that it wasn't for them. So the quicker we can narrow that down and say, no, it wasn't for them, or it's a possibility, the better it is for the client, the more comfortable they feel. So not knowing is the hardest thing for the client, so always have that in your mind. We then, next day, as soon as possible, we get on the phone to try and get some feedback, unless it's been arranged for a day further down the line. If so, we let them know exactly when they can expect that. If we call them and there's no answer, we make sure we call the client and tell them that we've tried and there's no answer and that we'll keep chasing. If for the next 2 or 3 days we still can't get hold of them, every day we'll make sure we call them and tell them that we haven't been able to get hold of them until it gets to a stage where it's 2 or 3 days down the line and the chances are that we're going to struggle to get actual feedback, which is rare, but to make sure that you've got a process in place so your client is aware at every stage that you're trying and tried to get in touch with them to get the best feedback possible. Now, the quality of the feedback is also really important. So if you say to someone, what did you think of the house? Usually they want to be respectful, or sometimes it just isn't right for someone, and therefore they'll pick something out and say, well, it was too big, or I didn't like the garden, when really it wasn't an issue, because if you changed the garden they still wouldn't have bought it. So I would always ask questions on the answers. So for example, if they say, oh, the garden wasn't for me, well, why wasn't the garden for you? Because it was too small. Well, if potentially you bought some land at the back and made it bigger, would it have been then for you? Well, no, because this still wasn't right. So they go into more detail and you get better quality feedback. So don't just accept the first answer they say. It takes a little bit of digging. And for example, we've got a leasehold home at the moment, and some people will say, oh, I don't like the length of the lease. I say, okay, well, what length of the lease would you like? Well, I don't know. In reality, the house isn't for them. If it was for them, they would buy it irrespective of the lease. So going back to the owner and saying they don't like the length of the lease isn't actually true. It's just being used as an excuse, and therefore causes you to look in places that actually isn't the issue and isn't the challenge to sell the property. So I would challenge you to have a think about exactly what your process is, and then come up with something that every step involves your client to make sure they are as fully informed as possible. If at the moment you're struggling to get in those homes and struggling to get the valuations in the first place in order to give feedback, you can visit www.fire-wave.co.uk/start. If you fill in your regular details on there, and someone will be in touch with you to explain exactly how we can help you get in those homes that you're struggling to get into, so you can give feedback, so you can practice your new feedback process and then get some offers and increase your turnover and profit, which is what it's all about.